Hello everyone, welcome back to week 21 of our power rankings series. We're doing another week of power rankings that saw a couple of movements in the top 10. Some of the teams go higher, a couple of teams go lower, one team fall out of the top 10, and all 10 power rankings and 4 honorable mentions stay inside the top 14. We'll go to all that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey Channel. Now before we begin this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. Would never be able to, so if you haven't subscribed already, please do. We're on the road to 500 subscribers. And don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below. Would love to hear your guys' opinion down in the comment section below. Would love to have a discussion with you. So in today's video, we got another power rankings video. This is week 21 of our power rankings series. We've got a lot more shiftments that happen in the top 10 and in the honorable mentions, so we'll get to that right here. So we're going to start, as we usually do, with the 4 honorable mentions. So the 4th honorable mention this week was actually first honorable mention last week. They fall a little bit while they did do actually quite good. And that's the Minnesota Wild. The Wild went 2-1-1 last week. Started out the week with a shootout win over the Colorado Avalanche. That was an impressive win there. Then they had an overtime loss to the Rangers. They got obliterated 5-1 by the Blues before they finished out the week with a 3-1 victory over the LA Kings. So they had a decent week. 5 out of possible 8 points, 2 out of possible 4 wins. It's not that bad. I think the Wild actually had quite a productive week, but where they are in the standings right now and how good some of those other teams around them did, and I'm going to bump them down to the 4th honorable mention. They're in a really good position though, so I think could bump them up next week, but still, they're in a really good position. They're in the first wildcard spot in the Western Conference. They've been really well surpassed by Colorado Avalanche, but still, they're in a decent spot. They're most likely still going to make the playoffs. They still have a really good team. Offensively, Johansson, Ogren, Zuccarello, Rossi, Nyquist, all are doing really good offensively. Defensively, Spurgeon, Faber, Bogosian doing pretty good defensively, and in net, Gustafsson and Fleury continue to be a solid goaltending tandem. So all in all, decent week there from the Wild. I add them as my 4th honorable mention. My 3rd honorable mention is a team who was 4th honorable mention last week, but do jump up a little bit here after another perfect week, and that is the Ottawa Senators. Senators had a really good week last week. They went 3-0-0, started out the week on the second half of a back-to-back being the Philadelphia Flyers. Then they were able to take down the Boston Bruins in impressive fashion 6-3, and then they were able to sweep the Battle of Ontario by beating Toronto 4-2. So 3 impressive wins. You expect them to beat Philadelphia, but really good wins against Boston and Toronto. They're still in the first wildcard position, still in a really good position. I do bet them slightly above Minnesota because of their stellar week they had last week, but still, they're a really good team. They're in a pretty good position. Offensively, Tkachuk, Stützle, Giroux, Batherson, Cozens doing really good offensively. Defensively, with Sanderson, Jensen, Shabbat doing really good defensively, and Allmark and Forsberg continue to be lights out in net. So all in all, great week from Ottawa. That's why they are 3rd in the honorable mentions. 2nd honorable mention this week is the same as last week, and that is the Colorado Avalanche. Had a point in each of their 3 games they played this week. They went 2-0-1. Like we talked about, start out the week with a shootout loss to Minnesota Wild before they were able to take down the Calgary Flames quite handily 4-2, and then below lead were recovered and beat the Dallas Stars in a potential first round preview 4-3 in overtime. So that's a really good win there for the Avalanche over Dallas. They're now up to, I think, like in the high 85s, like 85, 86, 87 points right now. They're a lethal looking team right now, and they're one of the best teams in the Western Conference, 3rd in the Central Division right now. So they're clicking on all cylinders right now. Offensively, McKinnon, Lehkonen, Colton, Nichushkin, and Nelson doing really good offensively. Defensively, Lindgren, Makar, Taves doing really good defensively, and in that Blackwood and Wedgwood continue to give them stellar level goaltending. So really good stuff there from the Avalanche. That's why they are 2nd in my honorable mentions. And my 1st honorable mention this week is a team who falls out of the top 10, and that's the Toronto Maple Leafs. Maple Leafs didn't have an overly fantastic week. They went 1-2-0 in a battle of 2 behemoths in the Atlantic Division. They lost 3-2 to Florida. Then, like we talked about, they lost the Battle of Ontario to Ottawa 4-2 before they wound up taking down the Calgary Flames to end the week 6-2. So really good end to the week, but they lose 2 games to division rivals, which wasn't overly good. They're still in a pretty good position. They're 3rd in the Atlantic Division. They're not too far out of 1st place in the Atlantic Division, so they're still doing pretty good, but because of those 2 losses, I am bumping them out of the top 10 still. Really lethal team offensively. Matthews, Marner, Nyes, Nylander, Tavares doing really good offensively. Defensively, Carlo, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Riley doing really good defensively, and in net, Woll and Stolarz are still a really solid goaltending tandem. So even though they didn't have an overly really great week. I'm putting Toronto as my first honorable mention. So those are my 4 honorable mentions for this week. Next, going over to my top 10 power rankings. So at the 10th spot this week is a team who re-enters the top 10, and that is the New Jersey Devils. Devils had a pretty good week last week, going 3-1-0, which has bumped them up to a 37-26-6 record. Started the week with a massive victory over the Columbus Blue Jackets. Then they would come from behind and beat the Edmonton Oilers. Then they would get their butts whooped as they lost to the Pittsburgh Penguins 7-3 before they finish out the week with another win over the Columbus Blue Jackets. So 2 wins against the Jackets, getting 3 out of possible 4 wins, 6 out of possible 8 points. Stellar week there from the Devils. They've solidified themselves at 3rd in the Metro right now. They're not too far behind the Hurricanes for 2nd, so they're still doing really good because of the 3-win week they had. It bumped them up into the top 10 again, so really good stuff there from the Devils. Offensively, Palat, Glass, Meyer, Bratt, and Heischer are all doing really good offensively. Defensively, Dumoulin, Nemec, and Pesci are doing pretty good defensively and in net. Even though they haven't been perfect, Allen and Markstrom are still doing pretty good in net. So all in all, pretty good stuff there from the Devils. They're 10th in my power rankings. 9th in my power rankings this week is the Tampa Bay Lightning. They stay there from last week. They had a decent week this week. They went 2-1-1. The start to the week wasn't great as they would fall to the hands of the Carolina Hurricanes, and then they had an overtime loss to the Philadelphia Flyers before they end the week with back-to-back wins, destroying the Boston Bruins and then shutting out the Philadelphia Flyers in a rematch. So all in all, going 2-1, 5 out possible 8 points. Really still a week from the Bulls. Now has them 1 win shy of 40 wins with a 39-23-5 record. So they have now gone themselves into 2nd in the Atlantic Division. So they are lethal right now. They're looking really good offensively. Kucherov, Point, Gensel, Hagel, Shrilly looking great offensively. Defensively, Hedman, Perbix, Chernak doing great defensively. And in net, Vasilevsky mostly, some Johansson, but mostly Vasilevsky is still looking so good in net. So all in all, really good week there from the Bolts. They are 9th in my power rankings. 8th in my power rankings this week is a team who had another really stellar week, and that's the Los Angeles Kings, bumping up a little bit from last week. They went 3-1-0. They started out the week with a win over the New York Islanders, then stunningly shut out the East-leading Washington Capitals. They were able to also shut out the Nashville Predators, beating them 1-0 in overtime before they wound up finishing out the week like we talked about with a loss to the Minnesota Wild. So it wasn't an overly great end to the week, but 6 out possible 8 points, 3 out possible 4 wins. They are clicking right now. They're going back and forth with Edmonton for 2nd and 3rd in the Pacific. They're not a huge amount out of 1st place behind Vegas, so they're still doing pretty good, and I think there's a chance out there that could get 1st in the Pacific. Very likely they'll get one of 2nd or 3rd, with them still leapfrogging the Edmonton Oilers. So interesting note there. Kings doing really good, 36-21-9 record. Lethal team right now. Offensively, Fiala, Byfield, Kopitar, Deneau, and LaFerriere doing great offensively. Defensively, Doughty, Anderson, and Spence doing great defensively. And that Kemper and Reddick continue to give them pretty dang good goaltending. So all in all, solid week there from the Kings. They are 8th in my power rankings. 7th in my power rankings this week is the Vegas Golden Knights. They had a subpar week this week. Got points in 3 of 4, but won 1-1-2. Started out the week with a very narrow overtime loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Then shut out the Columbus Blue Jackets. Then they had a shootout loss to Buffalo in the first half of back-to-back, and then got shut out by the Red Wings in the second half of a back-to-back. So 1-1-2 is not overly fantastic. 4 of possible 8 points is alright, but you want to see them do better. Only got 1 out of possible 4 wins, so not overly great stuff there for Vegas. They still have a stellar record of 39-20-8. Even after the sour week they had this week, they're still the top team in the Pacific Division. I do drop them a couple spots from where I had them last week, but still, Pacific Division leaders not going to drop them down too much. Offensively, this team is clicking. Hurdle, Smith, Carlson, Stone, Eichel doing great offensively. Defensively, McNabb, Whitecloud, and Hannafin doing great defensively. And in net, as much as they haven't been perfect, Hill and Samsonov continue to do pretty good in net. So all in all, decent week there from the Knights, getting points in 3 of 4, and that's why I have them as my 7th team in my power rankings. 6th team in my power rankings this week is the Florida Panthers. Panthers, who are 41-24-3, add to their win total this week. Only once though, as they had a sour week this week, going 1-3-0. They did not have an overly fantastic week. They started out the week with a very narrow loss to the Boston Bruins. Then, like we talked about, they took down the Toronto Maple Leafs before they wound up losing back-to-back games to both the Habs and the Islanders, two teams fighting for wildcard spots. So you definitely want to see Florida win at least one of those 3 games that they lost. They had a lead in the Islanders game. They had a lead in the Bruins game. They only lost to Montreal by 2 games, so they were close games, but you want to see them do better. So still, they're the Atlantic leaders. They're still one of the top teams in the league, so that's why I am keeping them as 6th in my power rankings, but I do drop them a couple spots from last week. Still offensively, Barkov, Reinhart, Rodriguez, Bennett, and Samoskevich doing really good offensively. Defensively, Jones, Mikola, and Kuliakov doing really good defensively. And in net, both Bobrovsky and Vanacek have still given them pretty dang good goaltending. So all in all, solid week there from the Panthers, but they went 1-3-0. That's why I had them at 6th in my power rankings. 5th in my power rankings this week is the Edmonton Oilers. For the first time in a while, they had a winning record. They went 2-1-0. They started out the week with a loss to New Jersey Devils, which wasn't overly fantastic, but they finished out the week with back-to-back wins over the New York teams. They first beat the New York Islanders in overtime 2-1, and then they took down New York Rangers 3-1. So 4 of a possible 6 points, 2 of a possible 3 wins. You like to see that for the Oilers. They're up to a 39-24-4 record, nearly at the 40 win mark, which is why I do bump them up a little bit from last week. Still, decent team right now, and they're looking better. They're still going back and forth with Los Angeles for second in the Pacific, but they're still a lethal team. Offensively, McDavid, Janmark, Perry, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins doing great offensively. Defensively, with guys like Bouchard, Wallman, and Ekholm doing pretty good defensively. And in net, both Skinner and Picard are doing great in net. So all in all, solid week there from the Oilers, going 2-1-0, and that is why I have them as 5th in my power rankings. 4th in my power rankings this week is a team who drops from 2nd in the power rankings last week, and that is the Dallas Stars. Stars went winless this week, going 0-1-1. They started out the week with a game against the Western Conference leaders and got smoked 4-1 before they wound up having a very narrow game in which they lost in overtime to Colorado, as we talked about, 4-3 in overtime. So 0-1-1 is not overly fantastic. They played 2 teams who they could very easily be facing in the first round this year. They're still a record of 42-21-3 and 2nd in the Central Division, and I think still 2nd in the Western Conference, so still a lethal team. But I didn't like that the fact that they did not win a game this week. That is why I bumped them down a little bit, but still, they're a really good team. Offensively, Duchesne, Hintz, Robertson, Granlund, Rantanen doing really good offensively. Defensively, Lyubushkin, Dumba, Ceci doing pretty good defensively. And in net, both Onger and the Smith are doing pretty good in net. So all in all, decent week there from the Stars, but didn't win a game. That's why I dropped them a couple spots here. 3rd in the power rankings this week is the Carolina Hurricanes, a team who was undefeated. They were great last week. They went 3-0-0. They started the week with a win over the Tampa Bay Lightning. Then we saw them beat the Detroit Red Wings, and that was followed by them finishing out with a 5-0 victory over Philadelphia. That now has them at a record of 41-22-4. I think they're 2nd in the Eastern Conference in points, 2nd in the Metro Division in points. They are looking really good. They're on some torrid winning streak right now. So the Carolina Hurricanes are looking lethal, and that is why I'm bumping them up to 3rd in my power rankings. They deserve it. Like offensively, they are looking good. Svechnikov, Aho, Martinuk, Carrier, and Jankowski, surprisingly, are all doing really good offensively. Defensively, Orlov, Burns, Chatfield continue to do really good defensively. And in net, Anderson and Kochetkov are giving them pretty good goaltending. So all in all, solid week there from the Hurricanes. And that is why I'm putting them up to 3rd in my power rankings. 2nd in my power rankings is a team who bumps up from 3rd last week. And that is the East leading Washington Capitals. Capitals had a winning record last week. They went 2-1-0. And with the sour stretch that the Stars have had, and bumping them back up to the 2nd spot, they start out the week with a win over the Anaheim Ducks. Then they got shut out by the Kings, which wasn't overly fantastic, before they wound up taking down the San Jose Sharks. So a couple of interesting games, a couple of interesting wins, lost to Los Angeles. They now own a record of 44-15-8, which is pretty dang good, if you ask me. And this team's clicking on all cylinders as the Eastern Conference leaders. Offensively, Ovechkin, who's creeping ever so closely to Gretzky's record. Strome, Mangiapane, Dubois, and Bouvillier are doing great offensively. Defensively, Trevor Van Riemsdyk, Chychrun, and Carlson are doing great defensively. And in net, Thompson and Lindgren continue to give the Capitals stellar goaltending. So all in all, a solid week there from the Capitals. That is why they are second in my power rankings. And for what's either the 5th or 6th straight week, the first team in my power rankings will remain the Winnipeg Jets. Jets had a decent week this week. They went 3-0-0. That's why I'm keeping them as a top team. They're up to a 47-17-4 record. They're only 2 points away from 100. This team is clicking on all cylinders. They started out the week with a narrow 2-1 victory over the Rangers. Then, as we talked about, they took down the Stars 4-1, and then they were able to come from behind and beat the Seattle Kraken 3-2 in overtime. So some interesting games there from the Jets, but they remain undefeated this week, and they're still the Central, West, and league leaders in the NHL. So that's why I'm keeping them as my top team in the power rankings. Just cannot bump them. Offensively, this team is clicking. Connor, Scheifele, Ehlers, Velarde, and the Mesnikov continue to do stellar offensively. Defensively, this team is still doing pretty sound with DeMello, Shen, and Morrissey. And in net, Hellebuyck and Comrie continue to provide great goaltending for this team. So all in all, a really fantastic week from the Winnipeg Jets, and that is why they are remaining the number 1 team in my power rankings. Definitely, those are my power rankings for week 21 of the NHL. I'd love to hear guys' thoughts. I didn't make any changes, like no team came out from last week, and I didn't put any new team in. So just to recap, here's my top 10 power rankings for this week. So at the 10th spot, we have the New Jersey Devils. The 9th spot is the Tampa Bay Lightning. The 8th spot is the Los Angeles Kings. The 7th spot is the Vegas Golden Knights. 6th spot is the Florida Panthers. 5th spot, the Edmonton Oilers. 4th spot, the Dallas Stars. 3rd spot, the Carolina Hurricanes. 2nd spot, the Washington Capitals. And for the 5th or 6th straight week, the number 1 team is the Winnipeg Jets. Definitely, that's all I'm going to talk for today. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Did I put anyone too high? Did I put anyone too low? And if you had to do a power rankings, who would you put where? Definitely love to hear your guys' thoughts on all that down in the comment section below. That's all I'm going to talk for today. Remember to like this video, and if you're to subscribe below, it really does help with the channel. And we're on the road to 500 subscribers. And don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on what you thought about it down in the comment section below. Also the blog, to news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. There's a link to that down in the description below. Check it out if you can. And I can't wait to see you guys all for next video. See you guys soon.